You say, well, what is the essence of who he is? And then you sneak down to verse 14, and John clears it up just a little bit. And the Word, Logos, became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Now let me ask you this. You're good Bible students. Who is being referenced in John chapter 1, verse 14? Who became flesh, dwelt among us, and showed us the glory of the Father? If that is Jesus, then the same Logos word of verse 14 must be the creator of verse 3. He must be the He of verse 2. And He must be the Logos of verse 1. Would you agree? Yes. In the beginning was the Word. Who's the Word? Not what's the Word. Who's the Word? Jesus. Go to John chapter 12. In John chapter 12, Jesus is visited by a group of Gentiles. We worked with Gentiles last night, if you'll recall, when we talked about Elijah and Elisha going to the widow of Zarephath and going to Naaman the Syrian, and how God tells you that you don't get to tell him who qualifies for his love. A group of Gentiles come to Jesus in John chapter 12, and Jesus gives this bizarre answer to them wanting to meet him in verse 24. Most assuredly I say to you, unless a grain of wheat, I think your old King James says, unless a seed of corn falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it produces much grain, or it produces much fruit. And let me work this backwards. Sometimes if you want to get to the right spot, work backwards. That's why the movie changes when you get to the end. Because the real story is not the first hour and 59 minutes. The real story is the last 60 seconds. The whole story in front of it changes. So work the verse backwards. Do you want a bunch of fruit? If you want a bunch of fruit, the seed must die. Because if it doesn't die, it's just a seed. But if he wants more seeds, you need an apple. You need an orange. You need a watermelon. You need something with seeds in it. Otherwise, you got one seed. You want 20 seeds? How do you get 20 seeds? Go buy 20 seeds. No. How do you get 20 seeds? Put the one seed you have into the ground. That seed turns into 20 seeds. Yeah. Jesus says, if I'm going to reproduce myself on the earth, I'm going to have to die. That's why when a group of Gentiles wanted to come and see him, he said, the only way I'm really going to be effective to reach the rest of the Gentiles is if I go do what I have to do. So unless the seed of corn falls into the ground and dies, it is alone. But if it dies, it brings forth much fruit. So if you want to produce, something must die. Yeah. Hang on to that statement. If you want to produce, something must die. Some part must go into the ground and die if you want to produce. Here's a quick review. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. Who's the Word? Jesus. The seed of corn must go into the ground and die. If it goes into the ground and dies, it will produce much fruit. So, go back to the book of Mark. I don't want to read all of the explanation yet, but I want to read just a little bit. And then we're going to slow down for a little bit and teach on some of this incredible seed concepts. In Mark chapter 4, verse 13, Jesus said to them, do you not understand this parable? How then will you understand all the parables? Verse 14, the sower sows the word. I pause because I took you on a left turn off the track into what seemed like a run into nothing. And now I want to slam you right back onto the story track where the sower sows the word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. And everything that was made by Him, and nothing that was made without Him. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. And we beheld His glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Who's the Word? Jesus. The sower goes forth to sow the Word. Who is the... Get rid of the what and switch to the who. Jesus. What's the sower sowing? Jesus. Who's the sower sowing? Jesus. How do we know? Because John, who writes his gospel last, saw the Logos as a man, not a thing. Yeah. For John, he goes, the Word is not what you say, the Word is who He is. Right. So the word is not just what you preach, the word is who you preach. Let me say that again. The word is not what you preach, the word is who you preach. We've all heard a lot of what. We haven't heard a lot of who.
Yes, sir.
Okay? And most of us in ministry specialized in stylistic what?
Yes.
Stylistic what? How we dressed, how we moved, accelerate our voice, pitch, bending, tears, laughter, dancing, crying, waving hanky, whatever it was, word, word, word. And everything that came out, all the what was considered word. John disagrees with us. What comes out is not word. Who comes out is word. Christ is word. Now, take the sower sowing his seed. Jesus tells you the seed is the word. Therefore, when the sower sows, what is he sowing? Jesus. So who must the sower be to a first century Jewish audience? Not the pastor, not the teacher, not the evangelist, not the preacher. The sower is God the Father.